It's Nita again. I wanted to come back on with an addendum. One of the important aspects that I did not address in this podcast was dealing with PTSD, anxiety, panic attack, panic syndrome, depression, uh, social anxiety disorder, like all of these mental health, mental illness realities that many of us are plagued with throughout the Christmas season. Your trauma will lie to you. Your trauma, for instance, if you are in a safe environment, your trauma is going to trigger you and drag you down certain paths through the holiday seasons, through everyday, normal, real experiences that you live. Your survival brain, your lizard brain, is going to take over and try to keep you alive. Just remember that if you are safe, if you are working with a therapist and you are doing that work to unlearn your trauma responses, that those trauma responses can be heightened during holiday seasons. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're having a relapse or that you are at risk of sliding backwards. It could just mean that the trauma work you're doing right now is hard. And it's hard to unlearn our only normal. Your nervous system is at war with itself. And that is something to talk about with your therapist. If you do not have a therapist, I would encourage you to get one. I would encourage you to start looking for one. I would encourage you to start working with somebody trained and specializing in the recovery of the traumas that you suffered. Additionally, in this addendum, an important piece when I'm talking about the spirit of Christmas, I touched on a little bit about domestic violence and sharing a bit of my story and talking about if you're in an active abusive situation, what to do. National Abuse, Domestic Abuse Hotline in the US. And I know in other countries there are other resources. It is imperative that you take your safety paramount. Statistically, over the holidays, domestic incidences of domestic violence increases. People are stressed out. People are at their ends, and that puts more family pressures, more dynamics on those intimate relationships that you have behind closed doors. And once those doors close, that's when it becomes more dangerous. So please do not hesitate to call emergency services. Do not hesitate to call police and put these things on record and change the life that you're in. There is no wrong time to take a step towards creating a healthier and safer life for you and your family and children. This is Nita with Infinity Within Coaching. Have a fabulous, fabulous day. Thank you. Hi, welcome to Infinity Within. I'm your host and coach, Nita Kruger. We are working on week 3 in December of our coaching podcast and aligning you to your intuition and unlocking the power of the most perfect representing you Christmas ever. Why is it important to have you in your Christmas view, in your Christmas planning? Christmas is supposed to be all about what you do for other people. Here's the thing. It's that old adage. If you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop, you cannot help other people if you don't put your oxygen mask on first. You've got to have respite and self-care first. And you have to have consideration of what your needs are first. And here, We take a little bit of time every single week and we work on just that. And our topic for this month is Christmas and then entering the new year. Today, I am really excited about today because we're going to look at what Christmas means to you. What does Christmas mean to you? Maybe you've kind of lost your way with it. Maybe it really doesn't mean anything. Did it once? Did you once have a childlike wonder of Christmas? I ask because I just want to see if we can get you in touch with an important part of you that's shut off, that wonderment. If you can close your eyes for a moment, think of that Christmas where everything mattered. What was different about that Christmas versus now? For all of us who have suffered through abuse or generational abuse, even if you don't call it abuse, if you were asked to abandon yourself throughout your childhood on a repetitive basis, so as much so as that it changed your interaction with the world, you suffered trauma. If that trauma has completely taken a part of your life and your value and tossed it in the trash, then we've got our work cut out for us to put that worth front and center in you. And your self-belief system, your intuitive belief system, the light in you that is dim, or maybe it's close to being burned out, or you're in question about that light within you. This is where we're going to work on that, because the light within you is directly reflective of your spirit for Christmas, your spirit for the holidays, your spirit for the new year. What you put out into the world and around you. The confidence with which you walk in your own spiritual joy is exactly how you will view and receive back through this Christmas season. Now, I know for some of you that's going to sound a little woo-woo-y, but if we shut off parts of us, how can we possibly not be disillusioned with anything that is magical, with anything that's asking us to tap into the light of our wonder and our soul? That isn't on a lack of, Christmas being less magical. That is on an underdevelopment of our own senses and our own ability to honor ourselves. And honor ourselves in an unusual way. So our own spirituality, and I'm not talking about God, I'm not talking about any religion, I'm not talking about a church, I'm literally talking about the energy with which you connect to the world, with which you connect to other people. Is that a pure and wholesome and open energy, or is it closed? Is it emotionally stunted? If we go back to that vision of a Christmas that was magic for you, maybe that was at a point where you still believed in, or for those of you that still know that Santa exists, maybe it was during that time frame when you still possessed enough magic to see Santa. Not everybody can see him. That's debatable. But regardless, you have to have magic to truly capture the season. And that magic will actually help you step into the new year more confident, more purposeful, more driven. Those are things that we need. We don't need resolutions. We need confidence, purpose, and drive and determination, soulful alignment. How are we going to get soulful alignment if we aren't even in touch with the light within our own being? I'm going to let you guys take, we're going to take 30 seconds here in a moment, and we're just going to reflect and then just grow that image and see if you can narrow it down to something. Was it a grandparent? Was it a stranger on the street? One of my most magical Christmas moments was I just had this calling in me. This was about 3 years ago, broker than broke. And my daughter and I came out of I don't know, what do you call that? Department store, a discount department store. We had kind of gotten the last of the Christmas things that we needed, and we were coming home for the Christmas holiday to get ready. It's so much to do. And I had just $20 cash left on me and some change. And I wasn't going to have more money in for a few days. And money's tight. I hadn't come to a good, healthy mental relationship with money. That's a whole different, we'll do that in the new year. We'll talk about money mindset in the new year. I promise. I'll write it down. I didn't have a healthy money mindset. I had a very scarce, a very poverty money mindset. And we got all the way out to the car. As we were coming out, my daughter dropped a few coins that she had gotten out of my coat pocket. She dropped those into the Salvation Army with the red bins and the bells. She dropped a few coins in there. And I remember when we had walked in, the lady sitting there, she looked hopeless. She was ringing that bell like she was a mannequin or a robot. She had listless eyes. She looked the very definition of despair. Despair was upon her. And I went through that whole store, and that woman who was about my age, she just couldn't leave my mind. I could not shake the utter hopelessness in her entire persona. So when we were leaving, my daughter dropped some coins in, and we got all the way out to the car, and I said, look, I feel really called to go back up there and to give this woman this $20. Not the, I apologize for coughing. Not the red bucket, but her. I just feel like she needs to know that the Christmas spirit exists. And my daughter said, I think that's a really good move. That's a really good idea. And so I got out of our car and I walked through the cold, the icy cold, back up to the front of the store where she was sitting. And I had taken a few coins out of the car, and I put that money in the red bucket, and then I leaned down to her. And I had written her a note in the car on just a piece of paper. I always have journal paper with me. Just wishing her a very Merry Christmas, and I hope that the light of the season could, just infuse her with the knowledge that she is cherished and loved. And Merry Christmas from one stranger to another. And I wrapped that $20 inside that note, and I walked back up there, and I was very nervous. And I went right down to the lady, and she was just listless. She wasn't even looking at me, making zero eye contact. And she just assumed I was going to put money into the red thing. And I dropped the few coins from the car in the red thing. And I stopped and I said, I'm really, I'm sorry to interrupt. And I just really wanted to tell you that I just felt very, very called to give you this gift and to wish you a very Merry Christmas. And I want you to know that you are blessed and cherished. And I want to thank you for sitting out here in the cold, ringing this bell, raising money for people who have a greater need than some of us will ever know. And I hope that this very small gift can bless you in some way. And I tucked it into her hand, and I said, this is for you personally. This is not for the donation bucket. And I need you to tell me that you understand this is for you. Because she was just checked out. She wasn't on drugs. Or anybody who's thinking she was on drugs or drunk. She was hopeless. She was struck with despair. It made me cry right now. Anyway, on that very dark, cold night, she looked up at me and she looked at me, and there was just the tiniest sparkle in her eye. And she said, "Thank you. Thank you." And I just visited with her for a moment more. I don't even remember the words exchanged, but it was just very personal between her and I. And it was a moment where the spirit of Christmas, my soul's light, reached out and just tried like hell to light her soul's light. And it was a very small gift. But sometimes the smallest gifts are life-changing to other people. And we never know that. We never know the story that's going to happen after we do good. And I think that we often get so caught up in the busyness, the chase, the doing, the wrapping, the perfect cocoa for looking at Christmas tree lights that we're just so caught up in having the magic of Christmas that we forget about creating the magic of Christmas. And I think that we walk by people who are struggling like they're invisible, too ashamed and too embarrassed, too busy to care, that they are humans too. And if our light is supposed to go out and interact with the world, we better get in touch with what our light and what our meaning and what our spirit wants and believes for Christmas. Now, I'm only picking on Christmas because it is a worldwide celebration. It's a massive celebration, celebrated through countries that aren't even largely Christian. Atheists celebrate Christmas because of the goodness, the wholesomeness, and if we take away all the religion out of it, the celebration of a young, unmarried girl having a baby. Choosing life. It's a beautiful choice. It's a beautiful choice regardless of where you stand in women's rights. That is a beautiful choice, to risk it all and have the creation of life. A lot of courage in the meaning of Christmas. A lot of courage. Now, why is it so important? Why am I harping on what does Christmas mean to you? Because it's really difficult for you to set boundaries. It's really difficult for you to scale back on the doing of things if you don't have a clue what you want out of Christmas. If you don't have a clue what you want out of Christmas, it's going to be really easy to go, bah humbug, Christmas sucks, or to say yes to things you want to say no to overspend or show up in places that you need to show up, to disappoint people because you're in a bah humbug space. Why are you in a bah humbug space? Does it actually have anything to do with Christmas? Or is it some untapped and unrequited problem from the past, from your trauma, some hurt that somebody didn't fulfill something for you along the way? Remember that moment of pure bliss and joy and magic at Christmas? You can possess that every Christmas of your life because it comes from within you. The way that we show up for and honor ourselves teaches our core, teaches our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical dimensional self, what kind of a footprint we can put into the world. Now, I don't know about you, but you've made it 16 minutes into the podcast. So I'm going to think that you want to put a really passionate, purposeful, soulful you into the world. You are not the hurt and pain that happened to you. You are not that hurt and pain. That sounds absolutely crazy to some of you. I remember when I had just come to grips with being an abused wife. And then I remember when I had just come to grips with the reality that I had an abusive childhood. I remember when I just came to grips with the reality of being a sexually abused child, at the damage that had done to me. And I didn't even learn that until I was in my 50s. I had shut down that part of me, disassociated from the pain. It took a incredibly skilled therapist to open up that idea to me that that was a really terrible thing. And then it took a even broader depth of therapist to get me to understand it, unpack it, and detach from the actual trauma that it had occurred. So we have these hurts that we just shut down and we disassociate from us as being part of us. We have people that we allow to walk over us and control us. And then we get into a holiday season feeling exhausted, stressed, broke, run down, chasing other people's needs and dreams instead of our own. Why? Because we've lost touch with what we need, or we never were allowed to even develop that sense of emotional or intellectual depth of self. If you were taught to abandon your needs from the day that you were born, how could you possibly, as an adult, be able to connect to your needs? In our weakness to find some semi-balance of purpose, some semi-balance of belonging, we reach out for people who mimic our pain. And if you are in a dangerous space, I urge you to reach out to a hotline for violence, domestic abuse violence. I urge you to reach out and ask for help. There are so many resources in the area where you live, no matter what country you live in, there are resources. I will amend that. I don't know about every single country, because right now I can just see some of you rolling your eyes. The countries that my podcast is predominantly heard in, they have resources. I feel comfortable and confident in that statement. Anyway, it is incredibly important that if you want the first 2 episodes of December's podcast to kind of work out for you, you have to get to know what you want out of Christmas. And if you don't want anything out of Christmas, why is that? If you're disillusioned with Christmas, I'm asking you to take some time this week and do a bit of work on that. Do 5 minutes, do the reflecting within this podcast, do 5 hours of writing. I mean, whatever you feel called to do, listen to that calling. And maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2 years down the road. But know this, when you have decided to heal your traumas, whatever work you're not doing, you're not moving through, which means that you're staying exactly where you are right now. And if right now isn't fulfilling, it isn't purposeful, it isn't driven with your passion and your purpose for living, and it isn't aligned and authentic, why are you there? Why are you right there right now? It is okay for you to embrace change. It is okay and necessary for you to embrace growth. Your entire body and system is designed for development and growth. Don't keep yourself in spaces where you do not belong. Oftentimes, we can even get really lost after narcissistic abuse because we have no sense of identity. Our entire identity was given over or taken over to feed the incessant beast of the narcissist. So it's even more critical for you to explore bits and pieces of you. I know that I've told this story earlier in podcasts, but early on in my recovery process, I spent an hour, over an hour, on the spray paint can aisle looking at paint can caps because the colors were so fascinating and devastating to me. I didn't even know my favorite colors. I didn't even know my favorite colors. My identity was so erased. That is not why you were brought onto this purpose, onto this world. You were not brought onto this world to have your identity be erased and eradicated. You were not brought into this world to have your emotions stifled and to be denied. Your emotions are real and valid, and you need people around you who can see that, honor that, and respect that. You were not brought into this world to live in fear, whether it's physical fear or the fear of being alone. I visited with an amazing lady this week. She is in an abusive relationship, life, but her fear of being alone is overwhelming. I could feel it. It was as though it was putty in the room. And no matter how much I encouraged that there is life beyond abuse, she just couldn't get her feet on the ground of that. She couldn't get her head around it, her heart into it. Yet, sometimes it's about planting the seeds. And if for some of you, if this episode is simply planting the seeds, that you have the right to discover all these little bits and pieces about you, that you have the right for Christmas, the spirit of Christmas, the joy and goodness, the religion or non-religion, to impact you and to blow your socks off, to light up your soul in any way that that manifests through you. That there isn't a single person in your home or your family, extended or direct, that gets to control how you think about your Christmas. I think it's really incredibly important that we acknowledge that if we're coming out of deep, oppressive spaces, now, those spaces could be within us. They could be within controlling families, narcissistic families, toxic families. But when we're coming out of oppressive spaces, we don't have an idea of what safe looks like. We can't have a crystal ball. We can't see the future. So we have to spend time with the one person that we're afraid to look into, ourselves. And we have to look to people who can guide us, who've been there before, who can tell us, you will make it through this. You may be disillusioned with the spirit of Christmas right now, but is it actually the spirit of Christmas that you're disillusioned with? Or is it something in your life? Is it a trauma? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a thing? If it's truly the spirit of Christmas, Why? Where's the cynicism coming from? Where's the hurt? When we boil down most problems, there's going to be hurt. Where's the hurt that is holding you back from shining the beautiful light? Because by the very fact, and you've heard me say this before, the very, very, very fact that you were born to this world is evidence enough of your right to have your soul shine. That is the only evidence that you need to know that your soul has the right to shine, is the fact that you were born. Whatever your spirit for Christmas is, I am sending you so many blessings, so many wishes, and so much joy and cheer and hope for an absolutely blessed, spontaneous miracle to cross your path. It might be the tiniest thing. It might be the biggest thing. But when that miracle crosses your path, I hope that it cracks through your heart, soul, mind, body, spirit, dimensional self, and that you feel it and you go, this is it. This is my miracle. This is my moment. And you will have one. But here's the thing. You could have 50 of them, but if you're not willing to open yourself up to growth and change, you will stay closed off to all the gifts of the universe, because the universe is energy. Science. You can go read a million books on it. Go Google it up. But we're all connected. And I think that for me, the most beautiful part on the ancient story of Christmas is the connection to so many living things all at once. All at once. It is a powerful, energy-driven time frame. May the absolute magic find its way into your path, into your heart, and into your soul. And may it give you the courage to do things that you never thought you'd be asked to do. And may that thing begin with believing in the power of you. Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening to all of week 3. And I look forward to seeing you next week.